So we're back in Judges. And what we're doing today is we're starting chapter 13, which begins a story of Samson, which of course will cover a few chapters. It's quite a detailed story. It's very exciting. It's very dramatic. And so we're going to plunge today and we're going to get started. So chapter 13, verse 1, the children of Israel, again, did what was bad or offensive to the Lord, and the Lord delivered them into the hands of the Philistines for 40 years. Okay, now, as I have mentioned a number of times, very often the number of years, especially in the book of Judges, no question gives us a historical sense, but they're all rounded numbers. And so very often you can learn from these numbers relative to other numbers a certain judgment about what's going on. Okay, so let me just give you 40 years is unusual. We have not met anyone at this yet until this time. Now we're in chapter 13. So for 12 chapters, we have dealt with all kinds of enemies and oppressors that gathered against Israel. No one came near 40 years. Let me just give you a rundown. I made a list. Okay. So our first bad guy was Cushan Rishatayim. That's in chapter 3. He oppressed the nation of Israel for 8 years. And then we had Othniel, the first judge, and he defeated them and saved Israel, at which point we have the fact that the land was quiet for 40 years. Okay, so we have an 8-year persecution and a 40-year good times. Next one is Eglon, king of Moab. They had an 18-year persecution, after which, thanks to the efforts of Ehud, son of Gera, we have a good period of 80 years. Now that 80 years, of course, is very unusual. And we've seen that is an indication that he was an amazing, amazing judge, or it was an amazing time. The nation of Israel was particularly good at that point. But anyway, our next bad guy was Sisera, okay? And he oppressed the nation for 20 years. So that's already more years. After which Deborah rules, the land is quiet. Deborah is ruling for 40 years. So 40 is our classic period of time that's good. Okay. And then Midian is our next chapter 6. Midian oppresses the nation for 7 years. Gideon comes along, saves the day. And then we have peace for 40 years. Again, a good period of time. Then we have 2 different judges. We have no Tola and Yair. We have no known enemies at that time. We just know Tola reigned for 23 years, Yair for 22 years. Then we have the stuff we just did about Jephthah. We have the Philistines and the Ammonites, okay, together are oppressing the nation for 18 years. Okay, so that's more than the 7 and the 8 that has been, but we already had 18 years before. Eglon was 18 years. Okay, Jephthah comes and he saves the day. And we noted this last time, he only rules for 6 years. So clearly he's not up there with the rulers that are 40 years and 80 years, etc. And then we have 3 judges, Iftzan, Elon, and Avdon, all of whom we have no mention of enemies, just the fact that they ruled. Iftzan for 7 years, Elon for 10 years, and Avdon for 8 years. Okay, and now all of a sudden we have here that the Philistines reigned for 40 years. So clearly this is an unusual time of persecution. 40 long years of persecution. The other thing that is different here is for the first time we have the Philistines as a major player. We first met the Philistines the last time with Jephthah. They are mentioned briefly together with the Ammonites, but the story proceeds with Jephthah really just defeating the Ammonites. So you have a sense that the Philistines are there somewhere in the background, but they're not a major player. By the time we get to Samson, the Philistines are the major player, and they will remain the major player until King David finally defeats them. So this also marks a new historical period with a new geopolitical situation where the Philistines are important. Now, just another comment about the Philistines. These Philistines are not the same as the Philistines that we met in this book of Genesis with Abraham and Isaac. They have the very same name. And in Hebrew, it's Plishtim, and it comes from the Hebrew word Polesh. Polesh means to invade. And it is understood that the Philistines were defined as people who came and invaded the land. And they both were along the coastal area, although in the time of Abraham, they came further inland. We see Avimelech, for example, during the time of Abraham and the time of Isaac, they're in an area called Gerar, and that's east of Gaza. Okay, it's already into the Negev. They're not on the coast. However, the Philistines here and from here through King David's time are coming in originally probably from the Greek islands, and they are invading and going along the whole East Coast. Now, we saw some mention of them as well, not of the Philistines, but if you recall, when we talked about the story of Deborah and Barak, we talked about the fact that Sisera was coming from the Greek islands, and that he would have been from a similar group of people as the Philistines. But at that time, if you recall, he's a group of people that are mercenaries that are used by the Canaanites to fight their battles. Here, on the other hand, we already are not hearing much at all about the Canaanites. They're on their way out, but what we are seeing is the Philistines. Okay, so that's just a little bit of an introduction. Now, what I want to do is go right into the story. This is the story, what we have in this chapter, chapter 13, the beginning of the story of Samson. Unlike anything we've met until now, we have a very detailed story about how he came to be, about his birth, and it begins with his parents. So let's read, starting with verse 2. There was a certain man from Tzorah, the family of this tribe of Dan, and his name was Manoah. His wife was barren and had borne no children. Now, the barren woman is somebody we've met on a number of occasions, very interesting. Most of the important women who were mothers of somebody important were barren, okay? Those that we know about the story, of course, Sarah, Abraham's wife, Sarah was barren, and it took many years until Isaac was born. Isaac's wife, Rebecca, is barren for 20 years before she has the twins, Jacob and Esau. Later on, Jacob's wife, Rachel, is also barren, and it's a very distressful thing for her until she finally is able to give birth to Joseph. So, and there are other barren women along the way, but of course, this one is a very, Hannah, of course, we will meet Hannah in the book of Samuel. Hannah is barren, and of course, her son is Samuel. So what we find is these women who are going to be giving birth to significant leaders, when we learn the birth of the child, it's very often that the mother is barren. And in a way, of course, you know, this past week, we just read the Torah portion of Toldot, and there we have the whole story of Rebecca and how those at the beginning of the Torah portion, and how she's barren, and how she responds and what happens. And it seems to me that this whole idea of a barren woman becomes essential or critical in the development of a leader of Israel, as if to say there has to be some sense of suffering or some sense of lack, so that when this child is born, he is so overvalued, he's valued because he was begged for, prayed for, for so long. And maybe that adds something to the value of this person as he grows to become a leader. So that's just a comment there. Okay. Verse 3, an angel of the Lord appeared to the woman and said to her, "You are barren and have borne no children, but you will conceive and bear a son." Okay. Now, by the way, this statement of you are barren and you will bear a son is something that we see also, this kind of statement of that we're going to see this afterwards as well. But anyway, I'll come back to that in a moment, just pointing that out. Okay. Now be careful not to drink wine or other intoxicant or other alcohol, or to eat anything unclean, for you are going to conceive and bear a son. Let no razor touch his head, for the boy is to be a Nazirite to God from the womb on. He shall be the first to deliver Israel from the Philistines. So here we have a very, very unusual situation where the angel is telling her that already she is going to have a son who will be a Nazirite, and that not only is he a Nazirite so that he should not, he will not cut his hair, but he's saying already while she is pregnant, she should not drink any wine or eat anything unclean. Oh, now I just found, I'm sorry, I wrote, where the same kind of language is said, you are barren and you will have a child, you are now pregnant, you will have a child. Almost the same language was said to Hagar when she was told that she would give birth to Ishmael. So that's interesting, because we don't usually think of Ishmael as something unusual, but if there's a comparison here, so it's just something to keep in mind. Anyway, going back to our story, let's go now and take a look in the book of Numbers, which is where we learn what a Nazirite is. And of course, the angel is saying to her, this is going to be a Nazirite. And yet when we go and see the rules of a Nazirite, there's some significant differences here. So this is in the book of Numbers, chapter 6, verse 1. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the Israelites and say to them, if anyone, man or woman, explicitly utters a Nazirite's vow to set himself apart for the Lord, and then it goes into a series of rules. So one of the things we see right off the bat here that's different, in the case of a Nazirite, it's the person themselves who makes that decision and then takes a vow of being a Nazirite. It is a person, it is an adult, it's someone who has the ability to make those choices and chooses to do this. In the case of Samson, he has no choice. This is something told to his mother that even before he's born, he's going to be a Nazirite, and he's going to be born right into a Nazirite status. So that already is something different. Now we set the rules. He shall abstain from wine and any other intoxicant. That's the same. He shall not drink vinegar of wine or any other intoxicant, nor shall he drink anything in which grapes have been steeped, nor eat grapes fresh or dried. Okay, so when we see the instruction that the angel gives to the woman, okay, that does not say anything about grapes. It just says don't drink wine, okay, or other alcohol. And then it continues the same idea throughout his term as Nazirite, may not eat anything that is taken from the grapevine, even seeds or skin. Okay, and we don't have that in the instruction. Now we go on in the book of Numbers. Throughout the term of his vows, Nazirite, no razor shall touch his head. Okay, it shall remain consecrated to the completion of his term as Nazirite of the Lord, the hair of his head being left to grow untrimmed. So here we do have the same thing. In fact, very, very similar words. A razor should not be on his head, both for Samson and for this, and to the regular Nazirite. But here it says, throughout the term, okay, till the completion of his term, throughout the term. And it's very clear from the book of Numbers that when you take a Nazirite vow, you limit the time, you define the time. You say, from now for the next 30 days, from now for the next year, okay? And in fact, Jewish tradition says, if you do not set a time, then it is 30 days. The default is 30 days, but you as the person taking the vow can set the time. Now you can say, I will be a Nazirite for the rest of my life, but you have to say that, okay? It's not something that you have to choose that, you have to say that. If you don't say it, then it's 30 days, but in any case, there is a term. It's clear from the Bible that it is a term. Okay, now the other thing it says is, throughout the term, verse 6, that he is set apart for the Lord, he shall not go where there is a dead person. Now we know that being in the proximity of a dead body creates a certain level of impurity, and it's a type of impurity that a priest, for example, is not supposed to be in the area of a dead body, because that will give him a level of impurity that will prohibit him from doing his service in the temple. So too, a Nazirite, for the period of his Naziriteness or whatever, he also is not supposed to be exposed to a dead body. Now, as we can see from the instructions to Samson's mother, there's absolutely no mention of him not being a dead body, near a dead body. And that's absolutely very true, because as we know from the rest of the story, his main role is going to be to defeat the enemies of Israel. He's not only going to be near dead bodies, he's going to be killing people. So he is not a normal Nazirite. He has elements of a Nazirite, which is the hair and not drinking the wine or the grapes. But although here we don't see anything about the grapes, we have about the wine. But from what we see here, there's also something added, that he shouldn't eat anything impure, unclean. Okay. Now, truth of the matter is, no one's supposed to eat anything unclean or impure. So I'm not quite sure what that means, but clearly this is something that is added to his restriction and is not added to anybody else's. Okay. Now we also, though, have a very interesting addition, which is probably the most important thing here, where it says, he shall begin to deliver Israel from the Philistines. Already, she is given this understanding that it's not just some child to eat, because she was barren for so long that her child's supposed to be special, but that he has a special role. He is going to deliver the nation from the Philistines. Okay, now this woman goes to tell her husband. Now I have to say, much of what I'm going to say today is coming from a class that I was in with a very famous Bible teacher in Israel. His name is Professor Uriel Simon. He's an old man now, he's retired, but he was the head of the Bible department at Bar-Ilan University, a brilliant, brilliant Bible teacher. And one of the things he does best is just a close reading of the text. And the kind of conclusions he brings out from that is just wonderful. And he has a very dry sense of humor. And when he teaches this chapter, he will talk about, who do we have here? We have two people. We have the wife of Manoach and we have Manoach, okay? Now, the wife of Manoach doesn't have a name. She's just called the wife of Manoach. And let's call her, for convenience sake, Mrs. Manoach, okay? So Mrs. Manoach, as you'll see if we go by, is clearly the main player of this story. She's the main person, and as we analyze it, we'll see not only is she the main character, but she's far and above her husband. Okay, he's down there somewhere, she's up there somewhere, and we'll see that through the text. And yet she doesn't get a name. And what he explains, and I think it's just brilliant, in a classic traditional patriarchal society, it is very rare that a woman's name is mentioned. And in fact, there's such a discrepancy between the names of men in the Bible and the names of women, okay, that it's clear that unless a woman has a particular role or something very, very, she's a Deborah, she's a Yael, she's a Dina, we don't really know her name. And in fact, not just we don't know her name, she's not mentioned. And all the list of descendants of anyone, we only ever mention the men. We never, with rare exception, we don't mention the women. And well, this is typical of an ancient society. We don't do things like that anymore, but it fits in with the way things were at that time. Here, however, there's something very ironic in that the text is saying this woman, from the outset, her relationship with her husband is a very traditional relationship. She's supposed to be on the sideline. He is supposed to be the prominent one. He has the name. She doesn't. And yet it is clear that what this story is doing is turning that whole thing on its head, because it is not the Manoach that's the key person, it is Mrs. Manoach. So one of the things that this Professor Simon would always say, he would never call him Manoach. He would say, there's Mrs. Manoach and Mrs. Manoach's husband, because that's really what's going on here. Okay, so it's humorous, but it says so much about what's really happening here. Okay, so the woman, verse 6, the woman went and told her husband, a man of God came to me. He looked like an angel of God, very frightening. I did not ask him where he was from, nor did he tell me his name. Okay, now we learn from the story, what the scripture tells us is that indeed this is an angel. What does Mrs. Manoach think? She says he's a man of God. Now, a man of God is a very interesting word, because it can mean angel and it can mean a prophet. Okay, so if you look, just give you a few examples. in our own book in Judges, in chapter 6, in the beginning of the story of Gideon, we learned an angel of God came to Gideon. Okay, that's chapter 6, verse 11. He's called an angel. Okay. However, we have another example. Where am I here? Another example in the book of First Kings, right after Jeroboam becomes king. In First Kings chapter 13, a man of God arrived at Bethel from Judah. Here, the man of God is clearly a prophet. He is a man. He is not an angel. He's a prophet. So when she goes to her husband and she says, a man of God, she is talking about, in other words, it's very easy for him to get the impression that it's a man, not an angel, okay? But he's a prophet. He came with a word from God. However, she adds, he looked like an angel. So you have a sense with her that either she really understands he's an angel, but she doesn't want to share that information with her husband, or she herself is a bit unsure. Has she been met by a prophet, or has she been met by an angel? Okay, be that as it may, she continues to tell her husband what he told her. You are going to conceive and bear a son. Drink no wine or other intoxicant. Eat nothing unclean, for the boy is to be a Nazarite to God from the womb to the day of his death. Oh, she added something that we didn't have before. The angel never said to the day of his death. All the angel said was from birth. She adds to the day of his death. Now, it could be she has an understanding that this is what he meant. It could be that she is on a very special spiritual level. We know she's on a special spiritual level because the angel appears to her, and angels don't appear to people unless they are worthy of having that kind of revelation. Okay. And he appeared to her and didn't appear to Manoach, right? Or Mrs. Manoach's husband, as it will. So that certainly says something. And so it's possible that this is what she understood, and that was the right understanding because she had that spiritual understanding. It could also be that it is her assumption, okay? Because it didn't say from birth till, he's 6. It said from birth, and so it could be that was her assumption. Anyway, what does Manoach do immediately? He doesn't say anything to his wife because his wife's not important. He goes to God. Manoach pleaded with the Lord, oh my Lord, he said, please let the man of God that you sent come to us again and let him instruct us how to act with the child that is to be born. Now, excuse me? The angel already appeared to his wife. What does he need it for? He doesn't believe her. Or he may believe her, but he may feel a little slighted that she got the revelation and he didn't. Well, I think that's a little bit crazy that he's going to God and bothering God over something when God already gave the information. He chose to give it to her. So you get this sense here. This is little Manoach. This is little Manoach. You get a sense why it was that the angel appears to Mrs. Manoach and not her husband. Anyway, so God heeded Manoach's plea, and the angel of God came to the woman again. God is saying to him, okay, this is what you want. I don't act on demand. You want it again, I'll do it again. But you need to understand, I'm appearing to the woman, not to you, because she's on a higher spiritual level. She was sitting in the field, and her husband Manoach was not with her. The woman ran in haste to tell her husband. She said to him, the man who came before me has just appeared to me. And here she calls him a man. Okay, so here it's clear she's in reporting to her husband, she's saying he's a man. Okay, but she's also giving him the choice. She's saying, it's very interesting. She's eager to share with him. She's eager to enable him to be part of this. She's not arrogant. She's not saying, oh, I'm going to keep this to myself. He appears again. She knows that it's important to him to see this for himself. She runs to get him. What does he say? Manoach. Oh, I don't like the oh boy, very not good. The translation. My English said Manoach promptly followed his wife. That's not at all what it says. What the Hebrew says, Manoach got up and walked after his wife. And it's so interesting because on the one hand, you have the woman who hurried up and ran, and you have Manoach who gets up and walks. picture I'm getting up. I put my hands on the table. I help myself get up. I stretch my limbs a little bit, then I get my walking cane and I walk out the door and I walk he's in no hurry. She's so eager. Oh my gosh, look, you got to come. You got to experience yourself. He's not eager. You get the sense he's not eager because it's coming from her. Again, there's this hubris here, it's got to come to me. He's got to follow her. And actually, it's very interesting. He's following her. He goes after his wife. Okay. And you get a sense that's the last thing this guy wants to do is to go after his wife. Anyway, he came to the man and asked him, "Are you the man who spoke to my wife?" "Yes," he answered. Then Manoach said, "May your words soon come true. What rules shall be observed for the boy?" The angel of the Lord said to Manoach, okay, now he actually speaks to him directly to make sure he gets it. And this is a way, of course, of confirming what his wife already told him. "The woman must abstain from all the things against which I warned her. She must not eat anything that comes from the grapevine, or drink wine or other intoxicant, or eat anything unclean. She must observe all that I commanded her." Now, this is interesting. Now, when the angel repeats the instruction to Manoach, he adds what his wife added. What did she add? She had said, when she spoke to him, she says, no. No, she didn't add with the, let's see. Okay, no. I scratch that. But he does add the fact that you shouldn't eat anything from the grapevine, not just wine. Okay, also wine, no, eat anything unclean. Okay, and then Manoach said to the angel of the Lord, "Let us detain you and prepare a kid for you." He's good. He realizes at that point it's an angel, because the angel speaks to him and he realizes that this is not a prophet, this is an angel. And so therefore he wants to offer some kind of offering. But the angel of the Lord said to Manoach, "If you detain me, I shall not eat your food. And if you present a burnt offering, offer it to the Lord." For Manoach did not know that he was an angel of the Lord. Okay, so he doesn't yet know that he's an angel. He sees him as a prophet, as a messenger, and he wants to give him some kind of an offering. And then the angel makes it very clear, "Don't give it to me, give it to the Lord." And he makes it very clear, he didn't know that he was an angel. So Manoach said to the angel of the Lord, "What is your name? We should like to honor you when your words come true." And the angel said to him, "You must not ask for my name." And here my English said, "It is unknowable," but that's not what the Hebrew said. The Hebrew says, "It is a wonder." And that's such a difference. It is a wonder. What is the angel saying to Manoach? It's above you. It's above you. We're in a spiritual realm here. We're in the realm of wonders and miracles. And you have clearly proved yourself. I come to you. You don't recognize that I'm an angel. You haven't figured it out yet. You don't realize that your wife is on a higher spiritual level, and therefore she's bringing you the true word of God. Anyway, and he makes that very clear, the angel. Anyway, Manoach took the kid and the meal offering and offered them up on the rock to the Lord. And a marvelous thing happened while Manoach and his wife looked on. As the flames leaped up from the altar toward the sky, the angel of the Lord ascended in the flames of the altar while Manoach and his wife looked on, and they flung themselves on their faces to the ground. The angel of the Lord never appeared again to Manoach and his wife. Manoach then realized that it had been an angel of the Lord. Okay? It took him a while. He had to see this fellow go up in flames, and then he realized, it was an angel. And then Manoach said to his wife, "We shall surely die, for we have seen a divine being." He's going crazy. All along, an angel is appearing to his wife. She knows it, and she's calm. She's not arrogant, but she's calm. She wants to share with her husband. She trusts this word. And all along, he's a cynic and a skeptic, and he doesn't realize what's going on. And when he finally realizes, he's hysterical, which is another indication that he is not at that spiritual level where he should be the one receiving these revelations. Because what does she say to him? But his wife said to him, "Had the Lord meant to take our lives, he would not have accepted a burnt offering and meal offering for us, nor let us see all these things, and he would not have made such an announcement to us." What do you mean, idiot? We're not going to die. We just heard we're having a baby. God wouldn't have come and told us we're having a baby, and he's going to, start the salvation of Israel if he meant for us to die. you see here, she's calm, she's wise, she's on a completely different level. And of course, at the end, the woman bore a son and she named him Samson. The boy grew up and the Lord blessed him. The Spirit of the Lord first moved him in the encampment of Dan between Sorah and Eshtaol. In other words, we have here, we'll see later that the Spirit of the Lord is on Samson, but here it's enough that Samson himself is born. He's still a kid, okay? The very fact that he's a kid, not only has God blessing him, but God's presence is being felt throughout the camp or throughout the tribe of Dan, which is in the area where Samson is living. So this is, beginning. I love it. Just remember, it's Mrs. Manoach and her husband. The name Manoach is irrelevant, but this is how it all begins. And of course, once we actually start learning about Samson, which we will do next week, things start to go uphill, downhill. He is certainly a complex character. Anyway, any questions?
It's a hoot.
You like that, Mrs. Manoach's husband? Great. Any other comments or questions?
Sondra, I had written down on there that his mother's name could be from 1 Chronicles chapter 4 verses 1 to 3 and verse 3. Hatzel
What's the chapter again? 1 Chronicles
4 1 to 3.
What chapter?
4.
Okay.
And her name is on verse 3, but from verses 1 to 3, it talks about the families of Torsoroti, their family. Is that?
Well, actually, no, this is talking about the tribe of Judah.
Yeah, but didn't it say there that they're from?
Yes. Okay, so let's talk about who these people are. I don't know that there's a name here for them, but anyway, these people are from Judah. Let's just give an explanation what's going on. The tribe of Dan is not supposed to be here. The tribe of Dan is given originally the territory that is on the coast. It is the greater Tel Aviv area of today. And in fact, today in modern Hebrew, when we refer to the metropolitan Tel Aviv area, we call it the area of Dan, because that's the original place where the tribe of Dan was supposed to be. The tribe of Dan does not succeed in capturing or acquiring all of its land, or very little of it. And as the Philistines come in, they start squeezing the tribe of Dan away from the coast and in towards Judah. So where they're sitting right now, between Eshtaol and Sorah, is actually in the tribe of Judah. They're kind of squeezed in there because they haven't succeeded in taking down on the coast. Later on in the book of Judges, we will learn that they seek another place and they end up in the north.
No, but it's just that at the end of verse 1, it says these were the families of the Zorati, which was the same as...
No, Zorati is the name of a place. If you'll see in our chapter 13, we learn there is a man from Sorah from a Danite family. But Sorah is the place. So
they're
Sorah
close, but not the same word.
No, it's the same word. It's exactly the same word. In Chronicles, Sorati means someone from Sorah. That's what it means. But it's talking about the tribe of Judah. It's very clear in that chapter. It's referring to the tribe of Judah. And Sorah is really in the tribe of Judah. It's just this group of Dan people are there now too, because they're getting squished out of where they used to be. That's all.
Yeah. Sorry.
That's okay. Wait, who had a question? Yes, Claudette.
It's just a statement about the women in Tanakh and in the Torah and children. Because if we look back, we'll see Hagar was important because the angel showed her that she was going to have a son. And we have a series of women in the Tanakh that God talked to and not talked to the men. So that shows that, how important that is. But I have an off-topic question for you. I wanted to ask you where is Shiloh in Israel today? where was Shiloh?
Shiloh in Israel today is the same place it was in biblical times. It is in the
Which
tribe
region?
of Ephraim. It's the tribe of Ephraim in Samaria. It's north of Jerusalem.
North of Jerusalem.
North,
Thank you.
yes. You're welcome. And everybody's welcome to come to Israel and to come to Shiloh. And I'm happy to show you around.
Thank you. Maybe your next trip.
Good. And if you come on a
Absolutely.
CFOIC,
We always make a visit to Shiloh on
to
every
see Shiloh.
What about women bishop, Sandra?
Bishop?
Women bishop.
Well, bishop is not a biblical term. It's, that.
Well, I know this question is going to cause discussions. I'm asking because the God of Israel, not more than one occasions, appeared to females. So my question is about basically the Gentile church today.
Well, I tell you, I'm not a Christian, so I really can't make any comments on what the church should be doing and whether bishops should be women or not. Traditionally, leaders in both the Christian and Jewish religions were men, although there were women that had very unique roles. That is changing, and I think that's a good thing. It is a conversation that's going on in Judaism. Rabbis at this point are still traditionally men, but there are some newer roles that are, shall we say, quasi-rabbinic roles that are also being given to women, and we're seeing that change. I anticipate that by the time my grandchildren are adults, we will see women rabbis being acceptable, even in Orthodox Judaism. But that's just my guess. But we are seeing changes like that. And I think those changes are good because women have different roles today than they used to. And that's a good thing. Look, I teach Bible. 100 years ago, it was almost
No,
unheard
that's fine.
of.
That's good enough for me, Sandra. Thank you.
And I think that's fabulous.
Thank you.
Sondra, in the
Yes.
New Testament scriptures, it says that a bishop must be blameless, the husband of one wife. So
Okay.
it's clear from letters to Timothy, first and second letters to Timothy, that these certain offices in the Gentile church should be men.
So you mean elder instead of bishop, and elder?
I think it often depends upon how different assemblies use those titles.
Okay.
Because, when we go back, we realize, I think bishop and overseer is the same thing, but different assemblies make different distinctions. But certainly, I think the most important leaders should be, according to scripture, should be men. The ones
I
that
will leave that open to debate.
Yeah,
Because I'm
there
sure
are
that-
several women in the New Testament also
Right.
which had leadership. So
Mhm.
And I would say
Right.
that, and the same is going to be in Christian and in Jewish scriptures. We have the very same debates. Is this a statement of how it was, or is it a statement of how it must be?
Mhm.
And I think that is going to be a question of interpretation, and you're going to have different people in both Jewish
Right.
and Christian worlds arguing that out. And
Yes.
we don't need to solve that today.
I guess
That's true.
we can remember that the Bible is not the whole collection of that got put into the Bible. Like there's lots of other books. But
on that one wife thing, I would say emphasize the one. He shouldn't have 3 or 4 wives. One wife can be enough. And if you got 2 or 3, look what Jacob went through.
Right.
So there's different ways to count one wife. Yeah,
Right.
I
Right,
think it is
absolutely.
numerical one, only one.
Good. Wow, this is a great discussion. All right. Anyway,
I
this
would
was
throw
great.
into
Yes.
that. I would throw into that conversation, and you might address this, Sondra, is that in Jewish thought, women are seen as more spiritual or more closely
able to hear from God?
Not always. I mean, it depends. Again, that's one of the things that people will say. It is definitely an interpretation.
Yeah.
I usually, I don't think I agree with that. I think that some women are more spiritual than some men,
Sure they are.
and some
Sure.
men are more
Mm.
spiritual than
Mm.
some women.
Yeah.
And I do think that women and men are different, but I think we have enough examples. Just in the book of Judges, we saw this example. Mrs. Manoach is clearly on a higher spiritual level than her husband. Deborah is clearly on a higher spiritual level than Barak. And those are two examples. And yet, the other judges that we saw and the stories about them were all men. Now, a lot of those judges were going to war. And that, again, is also a debate today. Should
Mm.
women be going to war? What kind of role should a woman play in a military operation? I'm not sure that, I mean, I think women have a lot to offer. I'm not sure it's a good idea for a woman to be a combat soldier, but a lot of people that would disagree with that today. And, you know, I don't know that we can say for sure that the Bible sees that any one way. I mean, again, look at the story of Deborah. Deborah was not the general. It is no question it's Barak who's going to lead the army. And yet who's the one who kills Sisera? Yael.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think the Bible is actually a lot more flexible on these things. But that, you know, at the end of the day, it is, what is your relationship with God? What are you supposed to be doing? But also the Bible is set in a particular ancient time.
Mm.
And parts of the Bible tell the stories the way they are because that was the way the society was. And then the question is today, when the society is different, what changes and what stays immutable?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's always a bit of a debate. Now, things that are very clear, you know, if God gives a commandment, God says, you know, okay, that you're not going to change. But there are things that are open to interpretation.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Most of the
Thank
world
you. Thank you
oppressors
so
today,
much.
all the world oppressors today are men. Perhaps if there were women in charge in Russia, North Korea, and nations like that, there'd be fewer world problems.
Well, I would
I don't know about
qualify that because
Like-
Mao Zedong's wife, Madam, whatever her name was a tyrant.
Oh,
Yeah.
was she?
And she was, oh yeah, it was the Gang of Four after Mao died,
Yeah.
and the Gang of Four, and they were more repressive even than Mao, and she was a major player in all of that. So
They had one in the Philippines too. They had one.
Yeah.
Well, you
Oh,
had
right.
you
What's her
had
name?
Queen Atalia want to usurping the kingshiphood, the kingship in the monarchical period.
So look, there's you know, we like to joke, my girlfriends and I, whenever we see, like in synagogue politics, I must say the men get really stupid sometimes. And
Absolutely.
a lot of the women will say, well, just guys, let us run the show. We don't have this ego stuff, you know? That's true. But on the other hand, I'm not sure
We'll
that
see.
if power was totally in the hands of the women,
Yeah.
you couldn't see the same percentage of corruption going on.
Nere.
So whatever. We
Thank
all supposed
you.
to try to be righteous. That's the end.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Sondra.
Thanks, Sondra. Thank you. Ta-da.
Thank
Okay,
you,
have a good
Sondra.
evening,
Peace,
everybody.
Rod.
See you next
Okay.
time. Okay. Bye-bye.
Really good, really good. Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed that film. And we have lots more film content and emails and articles that I'm sure you will enjoy as well. Check out our website at CFOIC.com and subscribe to our newsletter. You can do that right from the homepage. I know you will really enjoy the content that will land in your inbox on a regular basis. Hope to see you soon.